Okay, so for today, it's going to be very similar to what you have been doing. Only difference is that you can see in the question, they don't give you the slope or the y-intercept. Yesterday they gave you the slope at some point, and you only had to figure out what the y-intercept was. And today they don't give you that slope at all. So you have to figure out both the m and the y-intercept. Now the y-intercept is going to be the same exact thing as you did before, so you just have to figure out what the slope is and then repeat what we've already been doing. Okay, so I'm just really going to go over and review how to get the slope for 2 points. And after that, it's just going to be putting it together to get the full equation. For these, your answer here could be any of these in this area. Okay, so just know that. Okay, so here's what you're doing graphically. So we're trying to find the equation of the line that goes through these 2 points, right? So here you can look at and just see what's the slope. Yeah, up 2 over 1, right? So we know it's going to be y equals 2x. And then we have to figure out the right y-intercept, right? And so we're going to have one way of figuring out the answer is 2, but without a graph. And then do the same thing we did before, and you figure out what the right y-intercept is. Okay, this one's 3, so we have to do one problem basically to figure out the slope is 2, and do the problem that we were doing yesterday to figure out the y-intercept is 3. And that's the line that goes through the 2 points that they give you. Okay, so let's just get started. I attached, let's see here, some lined paper, make it a little more organized and easier to read. So do your work on that. I'm going to go through and do like 4 of these just to really make sure we got it. Mistakes, if you make any at all, are going to be negatives. It's not going to be, well, I'm not sure what to do next, because we've been doing so much of this, it's going to be pretty familiar. So don't focus on the algebra so much, focus on the arithmetic here. So first one is 1 comma 5, 2 comma 7. So I'm going to write that out. I'm going to do like a 2-column setup. So first thing, I'm going to find the slope. Now there's 2 ways of finding slope. I'm going to show you one way on number 1, another way on number 2. So one way of finding the slope was making a table. We did this. Made a table. I found out how far is 5 from 7. Like, so 5 plus what is 7? And plus 2. And how far is 1 from 2? Plus 1. And so the slope is going to be 2 over 1. Or just 2, simplified to 2. So on number 1, the slope is 2, which we already knew from the graph, it's up 2 over 1, right? So we already knew that's going to come out to be positive 2. And we already know the y-intercept is going to come out to 3. So now we know our equation is going to be y equals 2x. Right? And then we know it's going to come out to be plus 3, but technically we don't know yet. So at this point, this is where the review starts from yesterday. You're just going to take what you already have, right, and plug it into this. So we couldn't do this from the beginning because we didn't know what n is. But we just did the work and we found out what it is right here. So I can plug that in. Okay. And you can pick either one of these x's and y's and put it in here. So I'm going to use this pair, x and y. You have to use the same parentheses. You can't use this x and that y. So, but either one will give you the same answer. So you can say here 5 for y, 1 for x. And from here, it's just all review. You know how to finish this up, which you did on your quiz yesterday. Okay. Write out the steps. You can do it on your own, or you can watch me. It's pretty good at this at this point. And just as we predicted, just as we already knew, the y-intercept came out to 3, that's where it crosses the y-axis. So our equation is y equals 2x plus 3. So it's the same thing, right? It's just that you're not given that slope. But once you're given that slope, it turns into the same type of problem. And please try to do your work just like I'm doing it. Like there's 2 parts to each problem, so find the slope on the left, get the slope, and then draw a line to the right of it, do the y equals mx plus b, get the y-intercept, and then of course don't forget to write your answer. So don't just get b equals 3 and stop. You have to write the equation y equals 2x plus 3 to be completely done. So let's do number 2. Which is 0, 1, and 3, negative 8. Now I mentioned there's a couple ways of doing slope. If you remember on your final, we actually had to do 2 ways of finding the slope. There was a question about that. The second way, or another way, is the formula. Right. And it looks something like this. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So that was the formula way of finding slope. Okay. And when I use this, I like to use empty parentheses because you can get caught up in double negatives easily. So I always like to start off with just 2 empty parentheses being subtracted on the top and bottom. Okay, and then on the top, put in the y's, on the bottom, put in the x's. So we have 1 and negative 8 for the y's. So I'm going to put 1, negative 8 there. And we got 0 and 3 are the x's, so put 0 and 3 there. Okay. And as I mentioned, watch out for those double negatives. So we have a minus and negative 8, so that's actually plus 8. So 1 plus 8 is 9. And then 0 minus 3 is negative 3. And then simplify 9 divided by negative 3 is negative 3. Okay, so we have the slope here is negative 3. So I know the first part of my answer is going to be y equals negative 3x, and then now find the y-intercept. And let's just do the same thing you have been doing. Now, it doesn't matter which points you use right here, but sometimes one's easier than the other. So your 2 choices are either use 3 and negative 8 for x and y, or 0 and 1. Which one do you think would be easier? Which one do you think would be easier between these 2? Yeah, probably 0 and 1, because multiplying by 0 and adding 0 is probably easier than multiplying by negative 8 and multiplying by 3 and adding 3. So if you have smaller numbers, it might be a little easier if you go with those. So I'm going to use this x and y right here, 0 for x. So multiply by 0, that's easy, and equals 1. All right. So you can make your life a little bit easier on some of these. And then negative 3 times 0 is just 0. Right? So b equals 1. We don't need to add 0 or subtract 0. It just cancels out there. So we know it's negative 3x plus 1. Now, if you think you got the hang of it, go ahead of me right now. Just start number 3, and as I'm doing it, you can just look up and check to see if you're doing it right. Okay. But if you think like I still need to watch this more, then just keep watching and follow along. But this is a lot of review. The first column is review, find the slope. The second column is review, just like we've been doing the past few days. So it is all review. If it seems familiar, it seems a little easy, it's because it's all review. Nothing new today at all. 3
is 2, -3, and 4, comma, -2. That negative in there. There we go. All right. I'm going to go back to the table on this. So we have 2, -3, 4, and -2. From -3 to -2, I have to go up 1. So -3 plus 1 is -2. To go from 2 to 4, I have to add 2. So remember, the y is on top, x is on the bottom, so I have my m equal to 1/2. I'll do the y-intercept. Oh, I can start off my answer. It's going to be y equals 1/2 x, and whatever I get for my y-intercept. Slope is 1/2. You get to choose what points to use. I can use 2, -3 or 4, -2. I'm going to go with 4, -2. So -2 equals 1/2 times 4. Half of 4 is 2. And then since this is a positive 2, we're going to subtract on both sides. -2 and -2 is -4. So my y-intercept is -4. Again, if you think you got the hang of it, just go right ahead and work, and at your own pace. Probably go faster than I will. Use the formula again. Okay. Putting the y's on top. 5 and 2. And then 2 and 4 on the bottom. 5 minus 2 is 3. 2 minus 4 is -2. So my slope is, and with the negatives, usually you don't put it on the bottom. You can put it in the middle or on top. So you can do -3/2, or you can do it like this, either one. But usually not on the bottom, one or the other. So y equals -3/2x, and let's find the y-intercept. So -3/2, and choose an x and y to use. I'll go with 4 and 2. So y is 2, x is 4. Now remember, with multiplying fractions, you multiply on the top, divide on the bottom. So there's two ways of doing it. It doesn't matter which order you do that. Multiply the top, so you can do 3 times 4, which is 12. 12 divided by 2 is 6. Or you can do divide first and then multiply. 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 2 times 3 is 6. So either way, you get 6. Just remember to multiply times on the top here and divide by the bottom number. So we'll get 6, but don't forget there's a negative right there. So it's -6. So since that's negative, got to add 6 to both sides. we get 8 equals 8. So y-intercept is positive 8. Okay, so that's first 4. Okay, go ahead and work on the rest, and maybe we'll come back and do another one if we need to. That's the gist of it. Lots of review. Just be careful on your signs, because if you forget the negative on the slope, once you plug it back in, everything will be wrong over here because you missed the negative. So the arithmetic is going to be more tedious and more important than the algebra here. Okay, the algebra you're very good at. Just watch those negatives.